So tonight I'm going to make carnitas, or at least a lazy way of making carnitas, the way I make it, for when I'm just feeling lazy. So ingredients are garlic, bay leaf, orange lemons, and pork shoulder. You can, I'm just gonna smash my garlic here. You can add onions to this if you want, but I don't feel like adding onions to this right now, so I don't. But you could if you want. That's the beauty of this. You just add whatever you want, really. Smash garlic. I'm smashing the garlic first. I'm processing the these things first because I want to do this last for cross-contamination reasons, even though they're all going to the same pot anyway. Squeeze the orange. And put it in there with the rind and everything, with the seeds too. That's flavor. Plus, again, this is a lazy way of making carnitas. I'm not even sure if you need to squeeze this, because you're going to be cooking this anyway, so all the juices are going to be squeezed out during the cooking process. I haven't tried not squeezing it, but hey, if you're feeling even lazier than I am, just go for it. One trick you could do to make squeezing easier is to roll the fruit before you squeeze into it. Yeah, that makes it a lot easier. There we go. Then my bay leaf. You want to make sure that when you add bay leaf, that it's pretty large leaves, because you will fish this out later after the cooking process. So if you have the small leaves, then it's gonna be hard, and you might bite into a leaf that you missed while eating. And then I'm just gonna slice my pork into large dice. You don't have to be precise about this. This is a kilogram of pork, by the way. And I'm keeping the skin on because one, again, I'm lazy, and two, it's going to melt later in the cooking process, which would add mouthfeel, that sticky mouthfeel that I really like. If you don't like the skin, feel free to just remove it. But I feel like really adds to the dish. If you want to remove the skin, here's how you do it. You just make sure you have a sharp knife first, and then lay the skin down, cut off just a chunk, but not all the way through. You want something to grab on. Well, I'm gonna do it here. Not all the way through, and then as you drag, not really drag, as you slice through the skin, you want to do this sort of motion. And just see, you want to always be sort of at the edge, I guess, between the fat and the skin. But since I'm not going to remove it, I'm just going to keep this on. I'm not going to slice it. Bam. Bam. Bam, bam. And then, oh right, yeah, peppercorns too. Now you could add more spices to this. You could add probably cinnamon or star anise, cloves, and just add peppercorns. I'm not too worried about biting into this later on because it's just pepper, and it's gonna be so cooked down that it's gonna be mild in flavor afterwards. So about that much. I just eyeball everything. And then, here's the important part. When you add water, as much as possible, make sure that it's only about to cover the meat, because you will reduce the liquid later on. So, and since we're going to pressure cook this, it's not going to decrease the amount of water while we're pressure cooking this. Whereas if you cook this traditionally, the liquid is reducing as you cook it, but that's not possible with a pressure cooker. Oh, I forgot. So you want to keep this water as low as possible. As long as it barely covers the meat, that's good. And we're aiming at about 1% of the weight of the pork for salt. So this is about 1 kilogram, so about 10 grams of salt. But even then, I just eyeball it. Should be good. It's better to undersalt this right now than to oversalt it, because you can't take back the salt that you already added, whereas you could always put more salt later on. Pressure cook that until it starts to release some pressure. After that, I'm going to turn down the heat. So I'm going to pressure cook this for about 45 minutes to an hour, and then I'll see when it's done. So now that the pork is finished pressure cooking, I'm gonna remove this. Oh my god, look at that. We're going to remove the stuff that we don't want. Just the lemons, the oranges, the bay leaf. The garlic, I'm gonna leave in there to sort of mash together with the mixture. I'm not going to remove the peppercorns as well, as I explained earlier. But if I can remove some, then I'll do it. But I'm not gonna try to remove all of them. I actually only pressure cooked this for about 25 minutes, because if you added a lot of water, you still need to reduce that, and that's going to take a lot of time. So I figured that time reducing is also going to just help the pork cook even more, so we don't need to pressure cook this for a longer time. So I'm just gonna first bring this to a boil, and then turn down the heat to a simmer and let it reduce. Just let it reduce. At this point, you can see that the liquid is almost reduced. What you can do is you could take out the pork at this stage into this big chunks and put it in a container and let it cool down for when you're ready to serve. Or what I do is I just mash the pork in here, because that's the texture that I prefer when eating this. I've seen I think like 3 ways of serving carnitas. One is, I guess, the traditional way of searing it and then chopping it. The other is mashed, so they take it, they mash it, and then they sear it. And the third one, which is what I prefer, is just shredding. So I just shred it here, not so much that you get basically like a mush. You still want some texture in here, so I just do this, mash it a bit, mix it. If you see some big chunks, then I guess that's good now. So I got a container here and just put it in to cool down. I'm gonna tell you why this is a lazy way of making carnitas, because ideally you make this in big batches. So not just a kilogram of pork, maybe like 3 kilograms or maybe at least 2. You have 2 kilograms of pork, you cook it like this, you sort of mash it, right? And then you put this in the fridge to cool, right? And every time you want carnitas, you just take this out, you put some on a skillet, and you cook it, you brown it, and then you have your carnitas in like less than 10 minutes. I'm gonna show you how I cook it right now. So I just have a skillet here. And some store-bought tortilla, because again, this is a lazy way of making carnitas. You can tell that this is store-bought because of the abysmal quality, but yeah, it suits my needs right now. So imagine this is cooled down now. You took this out of the fridge and you're heating up the your pan. So I just put 1 serving right in the middle. 1 serving, and then I grab my tortilla, which is ideally cold, and I cover the pork with the tortilla. This serves 2 purposes, right? The first purpose is, since this has like a lot of liquid in it, a lot of moisture, it's going to spit at you as you sear it, and the tortilla is right there to catch all those oil splatters, so it's protecting you. The second is that as this cooks, it's going to steam the tortilla, which makes this sort of soft and chewy, so you have that texture. You don't have to heat this separately. Once I notice that the pork is getting brown, I just bam, and then you can top this with anything that you want, maybe cheese, some pickled onions, but again, feeling lazy, just straight up eat this like that. And yeah, there you have it. Lazy man's carnitas.